Hi everyone, and welcome to your horoscope for the week of April 13th. We have a really active and powerful sky playing out all throughout the week, but this week is not going to be the easiest we ever had. Because even though we have a lot of sextiles and a couple of trines in the sky, harmonious celestial conversations, we also have really powerful and intense squares which are definitely going to stress us out. They're definitely going to represent a factor of discomfort, agitating us, but also through the stress, through the agitation, through perhaps triggering our egos, are definitely going to be guiding us to our own inner truth. And it also invites us to figure out how our inner truth is going to relation to the external reality. So this is a really powerful celestial dance that is going to be really relevant both individually as in our own personal lives, maybe our own personal dramas, maybe our inner limitations, but at the same time it's also going to be really powerful, revelatory on the world stage because really significant information, perhaps secrets, or perhaps the true and unaltered state of this whole situation is going to reach our awareness, giving us the chance to make decisions and choices, especially how we are going to react to all of this and how we have to adapt our future plans. I'm going to start by analyzing the squares that have already been present in our lives for quite some time now. And yes, we are talking about the square between Uranus and Saturn, Uranus being in the sign of Taurus and Saturn in the sign of Aquarius. That is where individually and both collectively the old value systems, the old traditions, the old rules and regulations that govern society and equality, so to speak, are clashing with the new principles, the new and mostly futuristic ideologies, and slowly but surely, Uranus, representing the new, the future, the revolution, is winning. But as I said in my previous horoscopes, the power of the square is not going to be exact. Because before it can become exact, Saturn is going to retrograde back into Capricorn, and only in 2021 are we going to see the true manifestation of the square. So, whatever is going on right now, whatever ideologies, principles, new plans, new goals we can see clashing with each other, with the old, with the traditions, that is going to manifest, that is going to play out in a very practical manner on the world stage and in the lives of all of us in 2021. So we must take this as just a taster, as just a foresight, as a way to perceive what is ultimately going to happen in the very close future. Because if we think about it, February 2020 is not that far away. Yes, we may have delusion that we have a lot of time left, but in truth, we have to use this time to prepare ourselves, to make choices, and to embody the symbolism of Saturn in Aquarius, meaning to embrace and embody our own distinctiveness, our individuality, to find a harmonious way to connect to others and to share our individuality and our uniqueness with others. And by doing so, we are going to reinforce the power of the collective. Because when Saturn is in Capricorn, that represents centralized power. So it means that the power is in the hands of the authorities. But when it enters Aquarius, that empowers the individual, that empowers small groups, families, the local community, so to speak. So it is the expression of decentralized power where we are holding the power, and centralized power is merely a symbolism, it is merely a representation of our collective will. So this energy is inviting us to be aware of the fact that politicians, our representatives, those people who make the laws, the rules, the order, who decide how things should be structured, should be nothing more than just our representatives. One of us who is just enacting our will, or better said, one of our representatives who surrendered to our will. And in the present moment, it is perfectly obvious that this is not what is going on. That politicians, centralized powers, so to speak, are not respecting what they should be embodying, their primary roles as representatives, as being a symbol or basically an ambassador who just speaks the will of the collective they have to represent. But of course, we haven't seen anything yet, because later on, towards the end of the month, when Pluto is going to go retrograde, Saturn is going to go retrograde, Venus is going to go retrograde, as in other words, the retrograde season is going to start with the outer planet, and that makes this energy that much more concentrated, because when a planet goes retrograde, its symbolism turns inwards, and that gives us a much greater sense of clarity, and it's like a grounding energy where we are trying our best to see internally how the rules and regulations of of outer reality have a massive impact on us, and this gives us the chance to do inner changes, to restructure our own rules and regulations, to find the healthiest expression of the power we possess over our lives. And if many people do this inner work, so to speak, collectively at the same time because of the retrogrades, well, then this has to produce significant external manifestations, which we are going to see playing out in 2021. Now, there is another square in the sky, the square between Uranus and Mars, and this, fortunately, this rather uncomfortable aspect is losing its intensity, and that gives us all a moment of respite, because when these two big power players, which represent really quick and assertive energy, meet in the sky in a celestial conversation of tension, well, usually bad things happen, accidents happen, unfortunate coincidences happen, people get really agitated, frustrated, they tend to rebel, they tend to express their ultimate sovereignty, which means less place for compromises, which means less place for understanding, less place to apply a certain logic which involves the well-being of other people. So that's why when these two planets meet in the sky like this, usually it means turmoil, it means unpleasant surprises, it can mean accidents, it can mean unfortunate events, fire hazards, and usually it's also associated with really unusual and destructive weather phenomenon. But since this energy is fading away, this is good news for all of us, because the intensity, the stress, the anxiety which goes with it is getting to manageable levels, and later on, as Mars breaks up this square, things are going to feel much more calm, much more rational, because and that's really good news for all of us. But of course, these squares affect much more the world stage, and that's how they implicitly have a massive effect on us. But the other set of squares, held by the conjunction of Jupiter and Pluto with the Sun, are a totally different kind of energy, and they are really, really personal. Now, I usually regard Pluto as the celestial surgeon because it is the planet of psychoanalysis, so it usually exposes really hard to bear truth. It exposes corruption, lie, deceit, or where we use our own personal powers in a rather unwise way. And this, of course, exposes all these things regarding centralized power, the corruption, the dysfunctionality, the incompetence of our governments and politicians, but this energy is already obvious. This was basically just the outer manifestation, but now we get the chance to see what it means for us personally, because the sun in Aries is really powerful, represents our primordial self, where our instincts are stored, so to speak. And one of the most powerful instincts is that of the survival instinct of self conservation. And when the sun in this part of the sky converses in a conversation of tension with Pluto, especially, and Jupiter expanding all of this, well, this can feel really hard for the ego, because this is where we cannot be as rational, we cannot be as forgiving, we cannot be as compassionate as we would like to be, because our survival instinct is triggered. So this can mean a powerful energy of self psychoanalysis, where we have to confront all our limitations, where we have squandered our power, where we invested our power maybe in unwise ways, and that means obsessions, that means unhealthy desires. Maybe it means desires of sexual nature which we might have repressed. It can mean very many different things that Pluto is revealing and forcing the sun, the ego, to become aware of all of this. And usually this energy of inner confrontation, because you're not confronting anyone else, you're confronting yourself, you're confronting your own psychological configuration, and especially this is where your instincts demand that you respect them. Your instincts demand that you take your gut feeling, that you take whatever primordial self wishes from you into consideration. This is where it's not just about humanitarianism, it isn't just about compassion and serving others. This is where the stars are telling you, Aries, the child, the newborn, as in you are an eternal child to the universe, to your parents, but as you reach maturity, ultimately to yourself. So you're your own parent, you are your own protector. Your primary duty in this life, from every single perspective, is to take care of yourself, take care of your own needs, and those needs may include your psychological needs, where you have to act from a place of honesty, of truth, and self empowerment. So this energy can be really challenging because it is inviting you to do all of this, and it is inviting you to surrender all of your unhealthy desires, all of your obsessions, all those things which limit you, but you have power over. So they are not limiting you because maybe there's a massive blockage or trauma blocking you, but rather because you're feeding things, desires, passions, ambitions internally, and you're giving your power away, your self control, your self discipline, and making those desires have a very unhealthy grip on you. So, this is what this energy does. It's not that much about the past, as in when Mercury was in the sign of Pisces, because that can bring to the surface the hidden traumas, things which may not have always been your fault, and other people or external circumstances might have played a very important part in the production of that trauma. This is where you're confronting what you have in your life, in yourself, in your psyche right now, and you have that much power over, because the sun in Aries means that you are fueling whatever is limiting you, whatever you need to change, eliminate, or perhaps change your attitude towards. Now, this energy can be quite assertive because the sun is extra strong in the sign of Aries, but at the same time, the sign of Aries in itself is really impulsive, really brave, really courageous, and sometimes it is almost impossible not to express that energy, not to bring that inner impulse to the surface. And this is where our minds and our self discipline may not be that effective, because we are talking about our instincts. And for most people, their instincts are the strongest energies, the strongest expressions of internal energies and impulses, making it irresistible. Now, if all of this wasn't enough, the Sun also conjuncts Eris, goddess of discord, being at 23 degrees of Aries. So, Eris is very revolutionary. It is the energy of rebellion, it is the energy of expressed frustration, and especially in the sign of Aries, it's where your impulses, your instincts, um, receive the strength of almost like a mother instinctually trying to protect her children, and that is one of the strongest possible expressions of this energy. So, as I said earlier, if you are the parent of your own being, as in responsibility, as in you have to be there for yourself because this is how nature built us, that makes this energy that much more assertive, that much more surgical, because chances are you have to create a state of harmony between your instincts, the truth, and whatever you have to surrender. So it might not be really easy, and it can stress a lot of people out. It can make them aggressive, it can make them lash out, it can cause them to have moments of rebellion, and that rebellion can be against other people, against, of course, centralized power under the present circumstances, but it can also be against the self, because you might challenge the rational part of your being. Of you might tell yourself, well, look, if I know that whatever I desire or whatever I'm focusing on is obsessive, it is unhealthy, and it is not serving my highest good, so to speak, then why am I doing it? And that is the energy of Pluto, because just challenging yourself is enough to cause like a chain reaction of self psychoanalysis, where you just sit down with yourself, ask yourself key questions, ask yourself why and how and where's the solution, and when you answer yourself, that can lead to significant moments of epiphany, embracing your inner truth and finding the strength to stop the unhealthy patterns. But this, of course, can also extend to all relationships, because when you find out that maybe it is a toxic friend, a toxic relative, a toxic person who is manipulating you or forcing you one way or another to squander your power, or is having a really negative effect on you, like taking away your self confidence, having you always question your self worth, your faith, or whatever, well, that can cause moments of rebellion, especially with Eris empowering all of this celestial energies of tension. Now, for some people, this can come as a blessing in their lives, because moments of truth, moments of confrontation with the self and with their own psychology is something really positive and empowering, and they can identify this opportunity and work with it. But for other people, especially those who have really strong fire energies, this might not be that easy, because this might cause moments of rage, moments of deep confusion when you just don't know how to solve all these problems. That is where you might say awareness, just becoming aware of it, isn't that big of a help, because how do I solve it? How do I change something which is so deeply rooted in me? Because if you have done this all your life, if you focused on obsessions and on perhaps on unhealthy desires instinctually, it's not that easy to break this pattern, to remove this programming, to stop yourself, to stop your mind. But thankfully, we have Mercury in this part of the sky, who at the beginning of the week receives the trine, a celestial conversation of supreme harmony, from Saturn, and Saturn is exactly self-discipline. Saturn is exactly what you need to stop yourself, to face reality, to ground yourself in reality, to have power over yourself, to say, well, I'm the ruler of my own being from regardless from every single perspective, and I do what I want with myself. And if I choose to embody my dignity, if I choose to embody my own highest good, well then it's that much easier to fight against the instinctive impulses. It is that much easier to find the true power you possess over your being from every single perspective. Now, for other people, this is a totally different kind of energy because some people have really weak instincts. Some people are a little bit wishy washy, they're too permissive, they're too kind and gentle to other people, and they might take this into extremes because one of the most toxic feelings and tricks of the mind, so to speak, especially for those people who don't have like really strong egos, who do not have really strong Marses in their personal chart, like ambition, power of will, and stuff like that. For them, the ego manifests in a totally different way because they might make victims of themselves, they might sacrifice themselves for others excessively, obsessively, so to speak, because that is how they feel alive. Because if other people need them more than they need themselves, well, then that's already a trick of the ego. And yes, some people confuse this for being a good person or doing the right thing in the world, but if done excessively, if you feed your obsession of being needed, of other people wanting you in their lives, well, that's already unhealthy. And this energy, this celestial conversation between the Sun and Pluto and Jupiter, can help you put an end to this self victimization, but also self sacrificial martyr tendencies. Now, of course, there is also an energy to balance this. We also have really beautiful celestial conversations taking place in the sky, and here we have Mercury freshly entered into the sign of Aries, where the Sun is, but fortunately, it receives sextile harmonious celestial conversations at the beginning of the week from Saturn, and that is an energy of grounding. It grounds your mind. It makes you responsible for everything that is going on in your life, and you're not going to run away from that responsibility, but you're going to accept it and embody it. Yes, I'm responsible for everything good and bad in my life, and it is in my power to change everything that I need to change if it's possible, because it's also an energy of realism. You will not go after a change which is impossible. You, for example, you are not going to sell your house right now and move to a village or a country because under the present circumstances that would be extremely unwise and almost suicidal. But at the same time, this sextile between Mercury and Saturn gives us the power, the means, and also the intelligence needed and control over ourselves needed to do this psychological surgery, so to speak, which is given to us by Pluto, so we can remove our obsessions, so we can communicate in a very balanced and disciplined way, because the negative expression of Mercury and Aries is quick words, is offensive words, expressing maybe more than we wish to express, being painfully honest, and of course, honesty is always good, but sometimes we can measure our words, we can project what we ever desire onto other people in such a way that it doesn't come through offensively. And the sextile with Saturn at the beginning of the week helps us to have much more control and discipline over ourselves and our communication and mental sphere. At the same time, regarding things which do not have much to do with the individual, for example, documents uh, flow of information, transactions, and all of that, everything which has to do the symbolism of Mercury. Now, this energy is really positive because it's quick. It promises evolution, progress. It promises ingenuity, a certain type of instinctual intelligence which is perfect to make really quick decisions, to be present in the moment and do whatever is right, whatever you feel that is right. And when your instincts tell you what is right or wrong, empowered by this very special Mercury there, you cannot go wrong. You can trust your instincts, you can trust your primordial intelligence, so to speak, because it won't lead you astray. But this sextile is only present in the beginning of the week. After Mercury starts advancing, it will fade away, but there's another sextile which is equally as beneficial because it also forms a sextile with Venus and Mars. Now, the sextile with Venus, Venus is in the sign of Gemini, the ruling sign of Mercury, and that's a really powerful synergy because you can use the fertility of your mind, your persuasive power, the duality, the practicality that is your mind, your thought processes, your applied wisdom, your applied knowledge, to draw solutions or to come up with solutions, to invent something. And the sextile with Mars, Mars being in a sign of Aquarius, the individual, that is also a really good energy because it links together not just the fertility of your mind, the practicality of your mind, but also your mind's creative power, persuasive power, the influence you have over other people, over society, over your group of friends, over whatever you do on the internet, online, whatever you share and communicate, that holds this very special power. So chances are, not only can you come up with quick solutions, not only can you bring out your inner genius, not only can you think self-empowering thoughts, but you also have an influence over other people, over a collective, over how other people think and feel, how they use your information and your self expression. So, this is a really positive aspect, especially that Venus receives a trine from Mars in Aquarius, and this can mean unexpected help. This can mean a celestial blessing which can connect you with all the right people, all the right professionals, all the right friends, all the right people who think exactly as you think, who share your thoughts, who share your opinions, who share your ideologies. So you might find yourself that you're not really alone in this. Now, the other positive energy I would like to speak about is definitely Venus and the trine she forms with Mars. But before I get there, I would just like to say a few words about Venus in the sign of Gemini. Now, usually, Venus is not that comfortable in this part of the sky because Gemini is really dual energy, really light-hearted energy. It can go in different directions at the same time, so that doesn't support the commitment, the singularity of love that Venus likes to experience. But under the present circumstances, especially when we are physically limited, when we cannot meet other people physically, this is a really good energy because this brings out our inner Gemini, so to speak. So it helps us not focus that heavily on one thing or one person at one time. So if we're depressed, if we are really worried, if we are concerned, if we feel that we do not have any control or power over the global situation, well, then we can tap into this symbolism of Venus and Gemini and our communication, our ideas, our thoughts, the beauty present in our minds, the beauty of duality is exactly a saving grace, what we need, because Venus in Gemini also allows us to view something, to perceive something in a totally dual way. For example, we might see the devastating death toll of the virus, But at the same time, we can also observe that for some people, it brings out their inner genius in quarantine because they can create, they can write, they can do things which normally they would have never considered of doing because of comfort, because they didn't have time, because they just didn't have the opportunity to get connected to themselves and to explore themselves. It doesn't matter why they couldn't, but this energy gives them the empowerment, the fertility of the mind, especially the trine with Mars. Mars is action, Mars is the singularity of our wills, Mars is aimed intent. You see, the arrow of Mars is where we set goals, we set intentions, we plant the seeds, and then we take action to support whatever we have planted. With Mars is in the air sign of Aquarius, which has much to do with the highest octaves of our minds, which has to do with our intellect, which has to do with our deepest and most revolutionary futuristic thoughts, well then, if our thoughts receive our passion, our ambition, our determination, and it speaks harmoniously to Venus in Gemini, which is the practicality of the mind, where we can express whatever thought processes were influenced by Aquarius. Well, that is a really powerful energy of blessing when we can share everything that we think of, when we can share our most ingenious, our most unusual, our most passionate thoughts with other people, and that can produce really surprising and positive effects. May it be just simple inspiration, inspiring other people. May it be just showing other people that you're there for them, that you're suffering together with them. Your simple presence of mind can be already a soothing factor, a comforting factor. But this is also brilliant energy for scientists, public speakers, motivational speakers, artists, writers, those who work in relations with the public. This can be an energy of supreme empowerment where just speaking, just expressing yourself, just investing all the power of your ambition into your work, which has to do with communication or some kind of flow of information, that is greatly empowered, and you can actually be a guiding force in the lives of others. So this is a really, really good energy. Those who are students, those who face exams, those who are in an examination period, now this is a celestial blessing, especially because Mercury is so active and Mercury is so quick and receives the power of instincts, so they might feel a very powerful inner guidance, giving them the courage to face exams fearlessly, to speak their truth, to show their mastery, but also to show the individuality and the unique way they mastered whatever they have mastered. So this is a really, really good energy for us individuals, for scientists, for communicators, and especially when battling the coronavirus, when fake news and the way that news is delivered to us, now that gives us the power of discernment. That gives us the chance to decide for ourselves in a very empowered way which news is true for us and which we have to ignore for the sake of detachment. Now Venus also meets Vesta, the keeper of the sacred flame, and this represents the sanctity, the holiness of our thoughts. This is when power of prayer, power of group meditation, people simply connecting to each other and wishing something very, very strongly, as in help, as in solutions, as in envisaging the future they would like to experience, can have really powerful and palpable effects. And that is why I was also invited to take part in such a group meditation, which is taking place tomorrow, the 14th of April. And I'm going to share a link in the description of this video where you can join us and you can contribute with the sacredness of your own mind, with your own individuality to this group meditation and help create the future you would like to experience. So if you feel guided to join, just check out the description of this video and you can find the link to the group meditation. It's free and unconditional for everyone. Once again, I would like to emphasize on Mercury receiving a sextile from Mars, because this is also a celestial position which has much synergy to it, because Mercury is in the home of Mars, of Aries, and Mars is in the sign of Aquarius, a sign where Mercury is really comfortable in. So this gives the power of the sextile passive synergy. This means whatever you focus on this period until the sextile lasts, especially mentally, especially your future hopes and dreams, whatever you wish to accomplish, as in the symbolism of Aquarius, now that can magically, so to speak, mysteriously, in very unexpected ways, just enter reality. You are basically creating your future through your mind, with your thoughts, with the power of Venus and Gemini, with the power of Mars and Aquarius. This is where you are invited to master the air energy in your being, in your chart. And this can be a really powerful motivational energy to meditate, to think, to create, to do whatever it is in your power, to focus and set intent on the future you would like to experience, because this is where you give your creational energy to the universe. This is where you give the universe the blueprint, the pattern which it's going to follow to co-create that future which you expressed and deliver it into existence. So it doesn't even have to be group meditation, even though that is favored right now. It can be just your individual own inner work, which is just as effective. So whatever you do, even if you're not a spiritual person, even if you don't wish to benefit from Neptune being in its home sign of Pisces, the sign of faith, the sign of spirituality, you can just focus on your mind, because even if you're not connected to spirit, even if you're not connected to source, your own individuality, the uniqueness of your mind, the creational power of your mind is still the same. So instead of focusing on divine help, just focus on the intelligence that is present in your subconscious, the intelligence of your superior octaves of your cerebral activities. So all of this is a really powerful energy to just create with your mind. And this can have spiritual connotations like the one I said now, but this can also have really practical means, as in where you just create, where you just write, where you just think, where you have the courage to express your truth, how you envisage your future, what you would like to accomplish. Just invest your energy into an intent, into something, even if creating it, as in writing it or sharing it online or whatever, is not possible. Just thinking of it is already sufficient. Now I would like to close this horoscope with a rather hard aspect which we are going to have on the 15th of the month, and it is rather uncomfortable because Jupiter and Pluto are going to be joined by the moon, as in our emotional world, emotional power, our souls, which are going to square the sun. And because the moon also squares the sun and is expanded by Jupiter, well, this is going to be a really heavy, depressing, deeply emotional energy, which might really take away the hopes and dreams and faith of some people. But this is also a short-term aspect, so all we have to do is basically survive the 15th of the month. But just prepare yourself for this day, because it's going to be really, really emotional, and whatever truths are going to come to the surface are also going to be soul level truths, making this cocktail of energies that much more hard to face, hard to bear, but as long as you embody the symbolism of the sun in the sign of Aries, as in you are responsible for your own well being, you're your own parent, so to speak, then it can give you the power to face whatever happens in your life. It can give you the power to process and accept everything that you maybe might see playing out on a world stage, because as I said earlier, for some people it's going to be truth about their own personal lives and their own personal psychology, but for other people the shocking factor, the discomforting factor might be sourcing from the world stage or external news or something that's going on in society or the world which they have no power or control over. So it's not bad news for everyone from the internal things. For some people, it's from the external reality. But regardless of which situation you're going through, know that just supporting yourself, being there with yourself for yourself, standing from a place of self-love and embodying your dignity, that is already enough to help you navigate through this really hard aspect. And of course, there's the other side of the things, the really positive, empowering, optimistic aspects held by Mercury with other power players. And of course, the trine between Venus and Mars is also a saving grace. It can give us the strength, the courage, and it can empower our minds, especially the practicality of our minds, and even our dualistic nature, to just do everything we have in our powers, to do everything we can to make it through, with dignity, to make it through embodying our sense of self-love and self-worth. And of course, we can also not ignore Neptune being in the sign of Pisces, which just the simple fact that it's there, it is a massive spiritual help. It is the symbolism of faith, connection to source. So know that regardless of how things play out, there's always help there. Help in the form of spirit, help in the form of your own subconscious. And of course, Neptune in Pisces is compassion. So maybe help comes in the shape and form of other people who get your situation, who see your pain, your turmoil, and just offer unconditional help, offer love, offer support. It doesn't matter. There is always help out there. And if nothing else works, we can ground ourselves in just knowing that the world has faced similar situations before and we're still here. And maybe some situations in the past were much more critical and dire, and yet we survived. And we also, one way or another, we learned from all those experiences, and maybe that's why we never had a third world war. So of course, it's not all doom and gloom. Well, thank you so much for listening. Please take good care of yourselves, and if the power of the squares are getting to you, are depressing you, are making you think really negative thoughts, know that help is always out there. If it's too much for you, feel free to reach out, because there's so many good-hearted people offering their support unconditionally. So just ask for help, reach out. You don't have to suffer and bear that alone. Thank you again. Bye for now.